Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I hope you are ready for transnational terrorism and how they become a problem. The idea here that we are going through is that this is not actually targeted at all the terrorist attack, but actually at only a few specific, namely the major ones. And there is actually one very major one which I'm going to go through, which I think we can call it the mother of all terrorist attack. So let's take a look at this. It all started with this. Let's take a look. You guess it. 911 U.S.A. So what happened in 9/11 incident and how is it connected to what you learned about Iraq and Kuwait? And if you have not taken a look at the Kuwait, you can go to my previous video and take a look at Iraq Kuwait's invasion. So how is it connected? Because this is a chapter just right after Iraq Kuwait's war. Let's take a look. Well, you got on the left side, you will see Osama bin Laden, and that is a flag of Al-Qaeda. And on the right side, unfortunately, is a very gory picture of him being dead, assuming that he was shot dead. And yes, he was killed after that. But the question here is really, is Al-Qaeda still dangerous? That is the organization that actually Osama bin Laden founded. Well, let's take a look. So before we start, some of you might be confused who is Osama. Osama bin Laden, he is the founder of Al-Qaeda, and in Arabic basically means the base, in 1989. And what is Al-Qaeda then? That is an organization of Arabs who volunteered to fight the Soviet invasion or Soviet occupation of Afghanistan in the 1980s. They are actually Arab volunteers. So if you take a look at where's Afghanistan is the white patch, and above it is basically Soviet Union. So we can take a look at a group of volunteers trying to fight against the Soviet Unions. So why did they change from freedom fighters to terrorists? Initially, they are volunteers who fight against Soviet occupation. They are freedom fighters. So because of this incident, you have the Iraq invasion of Kuwait in 1990, and it is this incident which sparked off a chain of other incidents. Let's take a look. Osama bin Laden, or we call him OSL, was unhappy because the Saudi government rejected his offer to defend Saudi Arabia from Saddam Hussein and asked the UN for help instead. So instead of asking for someone who is an insider, someone like Osama bin Laden, they actually asked for an outsider, which is like the UN or the USA, which are non-Muslim, non-Arab. Yes. So they allow the foreigners or non-Muslim onto the Holy Land, namely Saudi Arabia. That's it. So there goes the Desert Storm and Desert Shield. As a result, it began directing Al-Qaeda's attack to fight the Saudi government, and in relation to USA and any US allies. And Singapore has one of the major US allies as well. So there's two big questions. Why are they considered Muslim extremists and why are they considered terrorists? So when we are going through later, so please keep this in mind. So Muslim extremists, let's understand this in the context. It basically means my version of Islam is different from most Muslim versions. So my version of Islam, the extremist version, is that it allows me to use violence or to kill people to achieve the goals of my religion, and God give me a thumbs up for it. Clearly states that if I die for a religion, I will go to heaven and be rewarded there, and this is their version of heaven. So excuse the murder of innocents, including civilians, elderly women and children, which normally would not be excused and they will be considered war crime. But as long as they are not Muslim, it's perfectly alright, and they come from countries that support the USA. As long as they are there, anyone else is, well, alright to be killed. So what are the goals of Al-Qaeda? They are supposed to wage a holy war, which is namely jihad, while in some other sense it means a struggle. But in this case, if you type into Google, it actually means holy war against USA and her allies. So expel all foreign troops from the Holy Land, namely Saudi Arabia, and eradicate all other types of Muslim believers. Wow, this is quite extreme indeed. So establish a pan-Islamic state all across Middle East. That means all of them should be Islamic State, and eradicate the Jewish state of Israel and return the land to the Palestinians, which we will explain in a while. Don't worry about that. So wait a minute, is Israel sorry again, and how are they involved? Just a very big question, because suddenly you are another country and another state while being involved in this conflict. So let's take a look first. If we can zoom out, we take a look at the area. So you can see that Israel is this green tiny patch near the sea. I mean, we can exclude Iran and Yemen, and it's surrounded by all Muslim states, but Israel is a Jewish state. That's the main difference. And if you take a look, while Egypt, Jordan, Syria, while you have Lebanon and Saudi Arabia at the bottom, it's actually surrounded all by Islamic state, and while poor Israel is a Jewish state all by himself. So before the 1930s, the whole area is actually called Palestine. It was under European colonial power, namely the British, French, and German. That's for sure. So Jewish actually are already there. So they only occupy 11%, Christian 10%, the others 1%. Mainly are the Muslims. Yes, that's only 8% in 1922. So later, after a few historical incidents, the relations between the Jews and Arab are actually alright. They are actually peaceful. So if you move on, in 1930s and World War II, basically there was a number of European Jewish immigrants that were arriving in Palestine, and they were desperate to escape. They're not like, okay, I just came here for a visit and I really like this place, I really like to stay here. That is not really the case. They were really desperate to escape because there is something threatening their lives. And we are asking why. So we must thank really Nazis, because they are led by this very famous, or you call it infamous person, his name is Adolf Hitler, which are persecuting the Jews and killing them by millions. By that point of time, people are really scared of him. So, and if you are a Jew in the state, you will really want to run away. So run to where? Israel is the place. It's like a safe haven for them at that point in time. So after World War II in 1947, as news of the Holocaust, wow, so many Jews are being killed, there is worldwide sympathy for the Jews, and thus the UN decided to divide up Palestine into a grand Jews a homeland. Now you have a home. Previously, you can wander around and nowhere is your home. So if you take a look in the 1947 Palestine land, the Jewish settlements are only in the what you call little patches. As you move on, actually what happened is that 1947, this is a very special plan, because this is called the partition plan, where they actually divided the land to give up the Jewish and the Palestine people are actually living in the green area. So they are the Arabs living in the area, and while Jerusalem, the headquarters or basically the capital, is actually run by UN admin. Yes, but let's take a look. Let's go back. While 1947, after the partition plan, you actually realized that the area occupied Israel expanded. Yes. We will talk about the wars in a while, but in the meantime, they actually expanded. And present day, look at how much they expanded and squeezing the poor Palestinians out. That means that if you're a person living there, you're Arabs, you will actually, well, either be squeezed out. So let's go on to the next one. So Arab Palestine refused to accept this UN ruling, and they have streets riot and violence against the Jews in Palestine state. So you have start a lot of people going crazy, and well, they feel that their rights have been infringed. So you have to take necessary action, which is violence against the Jews. And on 14th of May 1948, the Jews, well, they have their own country, their own Jewish state, and it's called Israel, because British well granted independence. But here's the key thing: after they granted independence, they say bye bye, sayonara, I'm going. So they live in there. Take a look at the dates: 14th of May 1948, and well, the Arabs actually strike back straight after that. How straight? The time period is actually very close. On 14th of May, this actually declared that independence. Jewish state is born on 15th of May, exactly 1 day later. That happens the first Arab-Israeli war, where 5 neighboring Arab states actually attack Israel. If you think about it, if 5% just attack you straight after you're born, I mean, you will most probably die, right? You take a look over there. The 5 countries are mainly Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia is there as well. So you got a number of countries which is attacking Israel. Poor thing, right? So what happened is that in 1967, there is a second Arab-Israeli war. If you think about it, if 5 countries attack you, and if you lose and your country disappears, would there be a second war? Well, I think you know the answer. So in this case, there was actually the second Arab-Israeli war, and this is a 6-day war in 1967, and after that in 1973 you have the third Arab-Israeli war, and Israel actually survived all 3 of them, and the third one is actually called the Yom Kippur War. So what it means is that Israel is actually very strong. I mean, one creature that actually came to mind is like a cockroach, and when you try to stomp it out, it won't die. So what can happen after this is that the land actually expanded. Remember just now we talked about whether the land expanded or not. So their land actually increased instead of reduced. After these wars, they must be doing very well in them. So what is the situation for Israel today? Jordan and Egypt have officially made peace with Israel and well accepted them, and most other Arab states have backed off and no longer threaten Israel. But there's still discontentment with the Palestinian Arabs who refuse to accept the two-state solution. They form namely the PLO, which is the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and another organization which is so-called terrorist group, to continue fighting the Israel through acts of terrorism. So how do the Israeli feel about this conflict? You can take a look at them. So they deserve a country of their own and say we have a right to have a country here in Palestine because it's mentioned in our holy book, the Talmud. And we deserve a country of our own because we have been persecuted for thousands of years in the countries as immigrants. And well, the most recent would be the Second World War, where they were persecuted and killed by the millions by Hitler and the Nazi army. So we are also willing to give out land to give the Palestinian Arabs their own country too, but only according to UN partition in 1947. So if you can actually scroll back this video, you can take a look at the partition. They only agreed, and that's that. But on the other hand, we have the Palestinians Arabs who feel about this conflict. So they say that they deserve a country of their own too, but the Jews have no right to be here because this is wants to be our land, and the UN and British have no right to give away land that was not theirs in the first place. They do not own their land anyway, they left too. So we will never accept the partition of Palestine into two Jewish and Palestinian Arab states. No separation, because there's one state and the state belongs to me. We will find our own way possible to get Jews off our land and destroy the state of Israel. That's what they feel. So you have two very conflicting views, and where does Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda fit into this conflict? Well, there's him, and they say that the Jews have no right to be in Palestine. And since our Arab Muslim brothers are being kicked out of their land by the Jews, we will help them fight the Jews in anywhere possible. Well, especially through training and funding of acts of terrorism. And since USA is supporting Israel, then they are also my enemy. I'll fight them in any way possible too. So what are the goals of Al-Qaeda? Let's refresh our memory. So they will wage a holy war, namely a jihad against the USA and her allies. Expel all foreign troops from the Holy Land, which is namely Saudi Arabia. Eradicate all other types of Muslim believers. Establish a pan-Islamic state in the Middle East. And last but not least, eradicate the Jewish state of Israel and return the land to the Palestinians. Well, now you have a better idea of why they want to eradicate the Jewish state of Israel. So throughout the years from 1990 onwards, Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden gradually increased their frequency and scale of their attacks on U.S.C. until they reached the point they are so well organized that they conduct one special attack in 2001. I think you know it. And that's because they were well funded and well organized and well trained. They have more systematic organization. They will carry the biggest terrorist attack of all time, which is, you guess it, 9/11 incident. So after post 9/11 and Southeast Asia, after 9/11, the US government under the George W. Bush actually declared a war on terrorism, invaded Afghanistan, and that allowed him to be in power for 10 years because he won the second election as well because of this. So Al-Qaeda's ability to launch direct attacks have been seriously affected because many of our leaders were either killed or, well, slowly arrested. So they were still dangerous because now they changed their mode of operation. They no longer carry out attack. But what do they do then? They actually become the minister mentor of terrorists. So basically they will guide, provide funding and training for other terrorist groups that share their goal. So they won't do the attack themselves, they train other groups to do their bidding maybe. So if you can see the picture, this is actually a RPG, rocket propellant grenade. So if you take a look at this picture, this can be found in your textbook actually. You got Abu Sayyid, which is from the Philippines. You got Jemaah Islamiyah, whoa, very familiar name. While their area of operation is Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, and Australia. And recently, well, not so recent ago, but they aim to terrorize the people in Singapore. You have Laka Toba, which is Pakistan, you have Islamic Army of Aden in Yemen, you have Armed Islamic Group which is in Algeria, Jamaat-e-Tawa while Jihad is in Iraq, you have Islamic Movement Uzbekistan which is in Uzbekistan, you have Al-Ittihad Al-Islami with Somalia. So you have actually so many branch, and trainer or the minister mentor to guide them is actually Al-Qaeda, because they actually are, if you think about it, they are like the rock star in the terrorist world, because they actually managed to conduct one of the biggest attack ever, which has caught attention of like people around the world, because U.S. is the strongest and they managed to carry out its terrorist attack, and is the biggest on U.S. soil itself. So they can be pretty reputable. So what does Singapore actually does? Singapore actually come up with a community engagement program. So even if there's a terrorist attack, what happens is that Singaporeans will be able to prepare for them and engage with their fellow Singaporeans and not be afraid. That is done in a local level in Singapore. So we move on to regional in under ASEAN. We have actually ASEAN Convention on Counter-Terrorism every year. This is actually come out with proactive measures to prevent terrorism in the first place. And if there is terrorism, well, must learn how to cope with it. Especially there's a few recent cases such as the one in Thailand. Actually the suspect was actually caught in Malaysia. He actually went to Thailand and placed a bomb in a backpack. So the last but not least, we have the Counter-Terrorism Committee by UN. They have actually one Security Council to actually discuss measures worldwide to actually counter terrorism. So we have local, regional, and actually international. So that will be all. Thank you for your time, and I hope you can understand a little bit more about transnational terrorism. Thank you, and if you like it, please subscribe. Thank you very much.